Hello, and welcome back to another episode of PopCulture Acts. We're working our way through OK Computer by Radiohead, and at track 4, exit music, open brackets, for a film, closed end brackets. As we know, you love a bracketed title.
I do love a brackety title. How do you feel about Shakespeare?
I suffered it enough to do my English GCSE and then never went back to it.
It's a good start. How do you feel about the movies of Baz Luhrmann?
I can't think of any.
Moulin Rouge.
Shit.
Well, now I wasn't. I wasn't actually. I don't. I picked that one. You're wrong. Moulin Rouge isn't shit, but I think he did Australia as well. That was shit. But and he also did Romeo and Juliet, and this
Which too
song.
was
So
fish.
Oh, it's fantastic! Absolutely amazing movie. As a modern interpretation of a Shakespeare play, I don't think there's many better out there to be able to find a modern audience but still be relatively true to its original form and format. Here we go. Welcome to the review of Baz Luhrmann movies podcast. This song was so Baz Luhrmann, in the making of Romeo and Juliet, approached Tom York to write a song for the soundtrack, and it gave him, I think, 30 minutes of the final 30 minutes of the movie. So they created a song, and it was intended to go into the film. It didn't. They actually did a different song in the end because they decided when making it that they were going to utilize it for OK Computer instead, and OK Computer was going to be a bit after Romeo and Juliet dropped. So they kind of went, "Here's another song. We're keeping this one." But that was kind of the idea of it. But also a story. I mean, Romeo and Juliet's quite a well widely known story, but I think a story that they liked and resonated with, and that was the DNA for the song, and I guess like the themes, the thematic bits of where this song goes to. But yeah, it's not a good start, is it? So you don't like Shakespeare, and you don't like the movies of the director that this was made for. Well, let's hope the song does something for you, eh? This one could be a tough one, kids. It is, I would say, quite a revered song of theirs with a lot of fans. But then I think a lot of this album is. But let's see if this can win you round. And if it does, after we finish recording, we'll go and watch Moulin Rouge together, right? Yeah, yeah. Okay, right, let's do this.
Wake from your sleep, the drying of your tears. Today we escape, we escape. Pack and get dressed before your father hears us, before all hell breaks loose. Keep breathing. Don't let your heart breathing. I can't do this alone. Sing us a song to keep us warm. There's such a chill, such a chill. That you choke.
Hope you choke.
That's nice.
Thank you. I don't really hope you choke. We're the love story element of that, not the choky death story at the end.
So, if you hadn't told me it was in a film or was meant to be for a film, I would have said this should be in a film.
Yeah.
It sounds it's structured and it tonally sits in a sad part of a film.
Has those crescendo-esque builds to it as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like
And you can
as the
sort of
emotional
see,
rides up, you know,
you can see
down.
it playing with like a death scene or
the death of Romeo and Juliet, for example. Yeah.
Well, yes, because obviously that's that, but yeah, it said it is a perfect piece of film music.
Yeah.
You get certain songs that fit perfectly in a film, but weren't designed for it. Where this, as you say, they went, "Oh, you were going to get this the back end of the film, make a song for it."
It's a great title for the song, isn't it? Well, like based off what you're saying, and that's not just because it's got brackets in it. Like it does. You're spot on. It does feel like it. It's almost it does what it says on the tin, doesn't it? It is exit music for a film, and a cracking movie to boot. Because I do think that despite the fact that they're basing this primarily off of the Romeo and Juliet story, which well known story, and love, but love that is prevented by in this case sort of two families and like a stupid system. You can't be in love with that person because and 1997, not many people I think really tapping into, and of course again Romeo and Juliet is a basis, but really tapping into that idea of going like, no, we won't be confined by these stupid, I mean they say it like that's why they're saying we hope you choke, these stupid structures where people say no, you can't be with someone, or you can't do this for whatever reason, why? It's idiocy, it's lunacy, it's your lunacy that you're thrusting upon us. And I think, I know you said you're not a big fan, but it's why I love a lot of Shakespeare, and it's why I love things like this of going, it's that timelessness of, I mean, I think in this case, it's a timeliness of bigotry and idiocy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you can fast forward hundreds and hundreds of years, and you just find out there's a different bigotry and a different idiocy, but it's still a, let's say, a ruling faction or a majority that is saying, no, you can't do this, even though you know it's right, and even though you know it's a beautiful thing. And uh, we talked possibly on the airbag one where I think we were leaning back into the bends, and we were talking about Tom York and the perception of the dour singer. And I think that this is another example of why I love his voice and why I don't get that, because I think at the beginning of this, it's very beautiful and it's very hopeful, still sort of tonally in the Tom York range, but that's where I guess we're talking about the love that they have. But of course, as the song goes on and the inevitability of the confines of the world come in, I think tonally he does pitch down, and it does become more dour, because he effectively is saying, you've cost us our love, we can't do this. And then that lovely little kick at the end of that, because of this, we hope you choke, we hope you get yours, effectively, because
Yeah.
we haven't been able to do what we want to do. And yeah, I think it's a really pared down initially, like with the starting off with the acoustic guitar. And quite often when they're interviewed about it, they obviously talk about the Romeo and Juliet connections, but they were saying that when they were creating the song and putting the song together, that they'd been listening to loads of Johnny Cash, but the recordings at Folsom Prison,
Yeah.
and that was something that they kind of wanted to sort of, like, ape or inspired them. But of course, unlike Johnny Cash in Folsom Prison, where it was him and a guitar, at certain points as we get those crescendos up and down, that's where they can bring through all of the other instruments, all of the other sonics. And Johnny Greenwood talks about this one quite a lot, as because it's so pared back, he said it was one of the really, really difficult ones to put together, because they never wanted, they said the temptation was often to kind of go, that'll do, but they just didn't want to. They always wanted to make sure that because it was so pared back, it wasn't just the same sound over and over again, which I guess is a
Yeah.
really difficult thing to do for a musician when you're trying to be sparing, is finding that balance between being too sparing, like just sit there and
Just
play one
right.
note and just hold
Yeah.
it for 3 minutes. Yeah.
But yeah, this is one of those, as I said, I don't think it would be one of those would be like, oh, I need to listen to this song again. Oh, it's thing. But if the right scene of something, it fits perfectly. I've been replaying through Red Dead 2 at the minute, and tonally wouldn't fit because it's not, cowboy and, western
Cowboy.
sounding. But you've played Red Dead 2. The bit when John, or when Arthur's about to go off and the horse dies and
Yeah.
that sort of lot.
Spoilers for anyone who hasn't played Red Dead 2.
It's been out long enough.
That is a good point. It has had a fair run of it.
But it could fit in that. It could fit in so many other things for that sort of the end is coming. Something terrible. The terrible part is about to happen,
Yeah.
and that's the best thing I can say about this. Is you could use it in so many things and it would fit. Yeah,
You
and
know, you
it
sort of said
shows how.
about. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
I was just saying, it should shows that obviously, as you said, they go on to then do film scores and bits and
Yeah.
pieces that they they clearly get how to use music in an emotional way to amplify what you should be feeling in that moment or in that scene. which is, I mean,
Yeah.
this is the first time they've done that in anything that we've done so far on the first album, where it's not a this is them being personal and oh either woe is me or I hate myself that we had with some of the stuff in the bends where you get obviously his
Yeah, the self doubt,
depression
the
and
kind of, yeah, the pressure,
yeah,
and yeah.
this is very generic as a sort of vibe for the lyrics and stuff of, as you said, it fits perfectly for the Romeo and Juliet sort of fuck you, you've caused us to not be able to do thing that
Yes.
it doesn't, but that's quite a generic
See, I disagree.
term
I
sort of,
absolutely disagree because
but
I don't think it is generic. Because I think quite often, and again, source material like Romeo and Juliet, and I think what a lot is done creatively, and certainly maybe a bit more beyond this. And I'm not saying this triggered it, but I think more often than not in that story, it leans into the tragedy of the victims, whereas I think this has the tragedy of the victims, but I think it has that extra bit that isn't often there, which is the and let's not just focus on the tragedy of the victims. Let's focus on the people who caused it. And I think in a lot of these things, and certainly in Romeo and Juliet, I don't think that is the focus. I don't think the focus is the the fuck you bit,
yeah,
which I love that about this because it is so easy. I'm not massively au fait with years and years and years of romantic. Oh, I'm going to avoid comedies, but like romantic movies, I would say they're the ones that I watched less when I was a kid growing up and things like that. But the lilt tends to be the let's focus on the love, and if it is a tragedy, let's focus on the tragedy element. Whereas I think this moves beyond that tragedy element and goes, no, let's focus it back on the pricks who made this a tragedy. And I think that's a rarity. I don't think that is a generic thing.
mm. I guess yeah, you don't get as much of that, but as I was just mean like lyrically in the way of it isn't very sort of about Tom or about
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that sort of thing, and more of the sort of
Well, and
generic sort of
and and
lyrically.
if any of the band had gone through like a tough love thing, maybe like maybe there's like maybe that comes across in some of the music, some of the emotive thing. But yeah, like
Mm.
they're when we do a lot of the Ramstein stuff where it's a story, isn't it? Like you
Yeah.
get to those songs where yes, it has sort of deeper meaning, societal meaning, etc., etc., but it generally doesn't have as you say, a personal tone to them. It is just uh, a good story to get across a worldview or a point of view. And yeah, I think you're right. I think this one does sit very much and very snugly in that basket. And you said earlier about the um, probably not one that you're rushing back to listen to. We say different strokes for different folks. I would say that this is probably my second most listened to song from this album, possibly third. There's another one that might do it. Paranoid Android wins out, but this I said it's quite revered by fans,
Mm.
and quite revered by me. But my love of movie soundtracks and
Yeah.
movie scores probably more than soundtracks, and where again I said about like finding this album and this album finding me, and bands I was bands I were listening to, and probably still to a large part today. Uh, there weren't a lot of bands that I was getting that I think were leaning into this. I mean, this has that, and I didn't realize it at the time, but this has that orchestral lilt to it.
Mm.
That you don't get in a lot of stuff. Certainly not. We talked about the competing British music market at the time. You could argue that like Blur could be creative little fellas when they weren't just doing the Cockney Y boys to compete with the Northern Y boys element, but there
So
wasn't a
probably
lot of people doing stuff like
Manics
this.
would have probably been your closest bit because Holy Bible Manics
Yeah, yeah,
was them pushing out of the box a bit. They then
yeah,
rein it back when Richie disappears.
yeah,
But if you only know the Manics from Design from Life onwards, then they're a very different band
yeah,
than
yeah,
what they were on the first three albums. But yeah, they were probably the only other band at that period that were probably
yeah.
pushing the
And
envelope
And I think it is that, as you say, that envelope pushing, isn't it? That and look, we're 4 tracks in, so there's more to come. But I felt like the envelope's being pushed in so many different directions, but also still with that promise of what's to come. Because I think this is still them, I don't know, finding their feet. Because this is very, very different than the Bends, and very, very different from Pablo Honey. And can I see the DNA for this album through both of them? Yes, I can. And look, we'll cut this one off in a second because there are more songs to do in the album. But we have talked before about loving to see that growth of a band, to see them from album 1 to album 10. Let's go with, and uh, sometimes that growth is it's as if a progression, but it feels very much in a single safety
Linear.
zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just getting better at what they do, and sometimes get fantastic. Whereas experimental, like again, I say they could have just banged out the Bends too. This ain't the Bends too, and they're doing this stuff, and they're introducing me to movie scores, orchestral stuff, different concepts in the love storytelling. Yeah, I was all over this, and I've never stopped being all over this song. I absolutely love it.
So then let us know what you think. As always,
Oh,
YouTube. Yes.
quickly before we do, very very quickly. So we've got a lot of albums to get through, and we will go through the Radiohead stuff. But just as a very very future thing, when we get to the end, we'll pick up a few sort of side projects, a few B sides, and things like that. But we will do a little. I'll pick out a few of the my favourite Johnny Greenwood bits of music from scores, and we'll pick that up so you get to see what he becomes as a music creator outside of bands. But yeah, we'll get some Johnny Greenwood going as well later on.
Yes. So YouTube things, like, subscribe, and ring off the bell. And until next time, and we're back for Let Down. Good day.